Well, good late afternoon and welcome to the LBJ grasslands. We are just now heading out of the Valley View campground. This is a day and night search and rescue training exercise, so let me just jump right into the scenario as I make my way out to my initial station. We are searching for a lady. She is a photographer, actually specifically a bird photographer. Her name is Katie. Katie checked in here at Valley View earlier in the morning, struck up a conversation with a couple of campers, and mentioned the bird she was going to be looking for. No one remembers that. She said something about the blue trail, and then she said she would be back in 2 to 3 hours. Well, that was quite some time ago. About an hour or so ago, the campers called it in. We've only had a very short amount of time to assemble an impromptu team. Since the blue trail was mentioned, we have a couple of searchers on horseback that are going to pick the blue up off of 2560 and then follow it all the way out and back around to Valley View. They'll be checking open areas as well, because one of the problems of searching for a person who's a photographer, particularly a bird photographer, is that hikers and horse riders may stay on fairly groomed trails for a significant period of time. All it takes is one sighting of a bird or anything that someone wants to look at for a photograph, and they'll head out into open territory really quick. So my initial task is to head down here where the blue and orange share a common path, and then I'm going to search some open areas to the extent that we have daylight, and I'm probably going to bring a drone into play for that. So let's talk about drones just a little bit. When you think about drones and search and rescue, you think about these really big platforms, and they're big, they're heavy, they're expensive. Speaking of expensive, they carry many $1,000 thermal zoom cameras. I mean, these configurations can cost $25,000, $35,000, sometimes even more. They're transported via vehicle. They can be moved a short distance in wheeled carriers, but only a short distance. They're typically deployed pretty close to the vehicle in which they're transported. So for purposes of this scenario, we've got an incident command center set up at Valley View, and in instances where IC calls in an operator like that, there's a 100% chance that drone is going to be deployed. The search areas are already going to be mapped out. The order in which they're searched is mapped out. The only thing that could cause a non-deployment is a mechanical malfunction or an unexpected weather event. So I call that the strategic application of drones. There's a 100% guarantee of deployment, and it's deployment against a very specific predetermined plan. Now, a ground operator like me, even if I'm primarily tasked with foot search, I'm not going to be able to call in IC and just say, hey, let's bring that $35,000 platform over here so it can help me out with my search. It doesn't work that way. It could be the case that the drone is already searching somewhere else. It may be the case that I'm too far out and the operator could not move that platform into my theater without losing visual line of sight. So that's a no-go. So if I'm going to use aerial intelligence, I'm on my own. Everything that I bring with me, I got to carry on me. Ounces are pounds and pounds are pain. So when it comes to drones, I stick with small, foldable, really lightweight. I do have a fairly small thermal drone that's portable, Parrot, Anafi thermal. I'm simulating a situation where I get a quick call, I got to move quickly, and my pre-packed drone of choice is a DJI Mavic Mini. That's about the lightest platform I can carry. I've got an hour and 20 of good sunlight left, and so there's certainly adequate lighting for a visual search. We know that Katie was wearing a very bright orange jacket, blue jeans, so you know, blue and orange will contrast very well with the generally light tan coloring out here. So I'm headed to my initial station, and I'll check back in when we get there. Okay, well, we're almost set up here. You may be looking around and wondering, what am I going to launch of? I have to do hand launch and hand land.
The home point has been updated. Please check it on the map.
All right, there we go. I'm going to get that recording. Now this is going to not be cinematic video. This is a search. I'm using the drone as a tool. The drone is essentially a replacement for my eyes. So we got a pond there. I'm going to look very carefully around the extent of the pond. This would be a good place for a photographer to post up and wait for a particular bird to come by. It's always important to keep visual line of sight with the drone. I'm going to have to actually move it up a bit. There we go. Okay, no sign there, so we're going to move around. Nothing there. Just kind of looking back and forth. Still don't see anything. Okay, so now I'm going to get it more oriented to head back in this direction. So we looked all around that lake. It wasn't very pretty, but now I'm going to head out Well, here we are again. I didn't even bother packing up the aircraft. I just grabbed everything and I've moved to a different location, and now I'm going to go out and search generally in this area. I've got pretty good line of sight to that pond over there. I may take a quick peek. The wind has picked up, so I'm probably going to keep the drone quite a bit lower this time. So here we go again. Over here, that recording, and head on out. Get it up just a little. The good news is that I'm going to be fighting the wind mostly on my way out, so as long as I keep it low, I shouldn't really have much in the way of trouble. Look around back and forth, go over, take a look at the trees. It's too hard to see anything looking back in that sun, so we're going to swing around in the other direction. Oh, you can see our infamous wooden monolith. We go off back in this direction. Okay, you can see where the orange and blue are going to eventually fork off. In fact, if we go over in this direction, you can eventually see that tree where I put out the chem light in the night search and rescue video. Okay, neither of these areas are really showing me much of anything, so yeah, I don't see anything there. Don't see anything there. So let's kind of work on heading back in. Still don't see anything. Oh no, who's that ugly motivator? I have a feeling I know who. So this segment was much shorter than last time, but you know, it gives you a rough idea of how these things go. Get down just a little bit lower. That's about right. Then let's say we want to land. Okay, there we go. I'm going to shut everything down here, pack it back up, and then head back to Valley View. Okay, so I'm on my way back into Valley View. I didn't see anything on my iPad mini. That doesn't mean there's nothing there. I'm going to check back in with Incident Command. I'm going to put my drone in the truck, take the SD card out. I'll let them have the SD card. That way they can look in, enhance the footage, zoom in. There may be some area of disturbance I missed. She may have been laying in some very thick grass, and this is the problem with not having thermal, is that there may have been too much glare on my monitor, and I may have flown right over. So I'll let IC analyze the footage. They'll use that to determine how to direct the searchers who are coming in on horseback, and then I'll get my next task, which I'm anticipating to be to take the blue trail on out past the Dolly Gates, and that will take us along the area that we went a few days ago by daytime, but this time it will be in the context of a search and rescue exercise. In addition to shedding the drone, is I've got the drone, a controller, a couple batteries, iPad mini, the holder for a mini, all that adds up. I'm going to shed that since I can't fly at night right now. My application is in process, and I'm going to switch the drone out for some thermal imaging gear and some night vision. So I'll check back in when I get started on my next task. Well, a combination of foot search and aerial search all around the Valley View area. I even searched way back here around the north end of the campgrounds. That came up empty. I did a pretty extensive search in about I'll say roughly a 500-yard radius of the campground. Now you might think, well, why stick so close, to where Katie supposedly started? There's a couple of reasons, one of which is this person is a wildlife photographer. When people are into, photography, observing, it doesn't make any difference whether what they're looking for ends up being 200 yards from where they parked or 2.5 miles. It's all about the observing. It's not like a couple hikers who come out and, wow, we want to do the entire Yellow Trail. It's quite possible that the reason that she came here to Valley View is that whatever she's looking for or wherever she wanted to post up and wait was, pretty close to the campgrounds. The other reason is that either on the way out or maybe on her way back, she may have fallen victim to foul play. And, that's not something we like to think about, but it is more often than you may think. The reason someone is lost has not yet, returned to where they're supposed to be is, yes, they're lost. They got disoriented. They got injured. But it could also be the case that, someone else put them in that position. So it's always good to do a very extensive search around the area. As you can see, I'm headed back out of Valley View now. I've been tasked with picking up the Blue Trail out the Dolly Gates and heading back around. This will be very similar to the route that I did a few days ago during the day. In fact, I was standing almost right here at this spot. I'm going to use the comm towers for orientation. The moon will be setting roughly into the southwest, almost due west by the time it ends up setting. So I'll have plenty of celestial markers, and if you are interested in that type of thing, I'd encourage you to go to my website, l5imaging.com. I teach night hiking and night operations courses, and this is the type of thing we'll go into in great detail. So I'll check back in when we get up near the Dolly Gates. So here we are coming up to that marker for the blue. It's literally right at the dead end of Civil Twilight. I just saw some animals running across here about a minute or so ago. They were brownish, moving very fast beyond the range of my headlamp. I'm going to guess that they were deer. I blew my hyper whistle a few times and it's been quiet since then. But you can see as we come up on this blue marker, I mean, it's still the tail end of Civil Twilight. We have some light. And as I approach this area, there's the Dolly Gates. You can kind of compare this to what the view was during the daytime. And it's only going to get worse. It's only going to get darker. And it's that type of darkness that just, I mean, it feels thick and weighs down on you. Okay, this is not quite where I stopped before, but from a search standpoint, this is very interesting. There's just a ton of trees out here, so there are plenty of places that she could have gotten out here and posted up or been looking. So one of the things I'm going to have to do is spend a little time going off and searching back into these trees. Of course, I'm not going to infringe on private land. That'll be pretty easy because it's all fenced, but again, she may have wandered over here, tried to take a picture, trip. Again, I hate to keep bringing up, but foul play is an option. And the reason I chose this particular point is because you have this little sort of a rise right here where you're coming up. We've got a little clump of trees, so I can kind of search in a semicircular fashion out here. And as long as I make my way kind of back to this particular clump of trees and this particular rise, it's real easy for me to pick the trail back up. So I'm going to do that and then head on to Eureka Lake. Okay, so you see this area right here. What I'm looking for is there any sign that someone was dragged or forcibly coerced? See how that goes back into the trees and there's an open, kind of open in there. You know, it'd be real easy to drag somebody in there, but of course there's no sign that that happened, so I'm going to move on. Okay, I don't know if you can tell, this is the point that I stopped during the daytime trip. I've been going through quite a few switchbacks, and I use what I call a high-low method to keep count of them. That's one of the things I discuss in my classes. It's similar to a high-low count in blackjack, but the thing I'll point out, you remember this log we had to step over from the other video. Always turn around, make sure nothing's following me. It takes longer at night to cover the same distance. It just, I don't care, you know, you're keeping up with your pace count, you know you've gone the exact same number of paces. It just seems like everything takes longer at night. So that's just, it's something that you have to get used to, and it's something that you have to keep in mind. But let's move onward. Okay, so recognize this point. Well, let me throw a little bit more light on it. Don't know if you can quite see the edge of the private land out there. And let's move around. There's the edge of Eureka Lake. It looks quite a bit different at night, doesn't it? Let me bring the big gun in. Get the Phoenix onto it. Even then, you can't really see much detail about the lake. So we're pretty much at the northwest corner of the grasslands. And I'm using, I don't know if you can see it up there, mostly using the moon tonight. Moon in the control tower. So when I started out, I know what the anticipated motion of the moon is throughout the night. It's going to be on back left. Then as I'm taking this turn, it's going to be to the left. And then as I turn some more, it'll be, you know, in front of me, and then to the right, and then kind of to the back on the way in. So it's just like we use the sun. Okay, let's see if we can get a better view. Can you see the lake? I don't know if it'll show up in the GoPro. Yeah, compare this to what the view is like during the day, and we still have a tiny amount of light left over from civil twilight. It's still not perfectly dark yet, but look how different this is. Okay, so this is that area after we rounded the lake. I told you there was a little bit of an upslope here that may have been troublesome for horses, you know, if it was muddy. So this is what that Blue Trail detour was trying to avoid. You know, particularly if this is muddy, I probably wouldn't want to bring my horse up here. We got one more right here. Remember what I said in a previous video, when you're moving on an upslope about keeping your feet turned to the side. That's what I'm doing. And then we'll do a quick 360 assessment at the top. And then you remember from the daytime video that both of those paths are going to merge more up here. So I'm probably going to have to do a little searching out in these areas just to be safe, and then I'll move on. So I just finished a quick search of this general area, so I have a question for you. Where's Valley View? Well, there's our comm towers. Remember I said the moon would be in front of me after I made the turn. There it is. Okay, that's good. If the moon were behind me, I'd be really afraid right now. If we look at the orientation the comm towers are in where we left, where would I have to go to match that orientation? Well, the answer is kind of that way. Now, I may be off a few degrees. I don't care. I just know, generally speaking, I've got to head that way to get back to Valley View. And that's really all I need for general orientation, is the moon and the comm towers, just like we use the sun and the comm towers during the day. Okay, so here we are at that fork. contrast this to how it looked during the day. Now, I know I need to keep turning back in this direction to go to Valley View, so even if that blue marker wasn't there, I would know that's the way I want to go. However, I've been blowing my whistle, calling Kate's name. You know, there's a lot of trees off around here. So what I'm going to do, there's a rise up there. I'm going to set a waypoint, which we know to be a chem light. I'm going to point that I went in this direction. So I'm going to lay my chem light down, keep up with my pace count, go up just beyond that rise, and if there's a lot of wide open territory, probably do a thermal search. Okay, well, no luck. We were able to search a very wide area in a tree line that was several hundred yards away, so time to pick up my chem light here, and then we'll head back in that direction. It takes some time to contrast what this looks like at night versus when we came through here literally just a few days ago. Okay, well, after some searches of wide open spaces, we moved back into the trees, and here's one of our landmark windmills. I think there's maybe half a dozen of these out at the grasslands. They fill up with rainwater, and your horse can take a drink. Okay, so here's another one of our forks. You'll remember this from the daytime video. And, you know, moon is now off to my front right. This is good, so, you know, we want to continue turning back in that direction. I probably will go off and search for maybe 100 to 200 yards in this direction. This is something you've seen before. Drop the chem light out, back, blah, blah. Not really worth recording, so I'll check back in when we get to something more interesting. But again, contrast this to what you saw in the daytime video. Quite different at night, isn't it? Okay, I cut this part out of the daytime video because I wanted to keep it fairly short. This is where the orange and blue split off. But there's also a side trail here. This will actually, if it holds up, go all the way back to the road. So this kind of sucks. I'd really like to have a drone here, because I now have 3 paths to search. So what I'm going to do, especially since it's obviously very muddy down there, it's going to be pretty easy to pick up sign. I probably wouldn't have to devote too much time to that path, but I'm probably going to have to go at least a few hundred yards down this path, especially since there are trees where a person might, you know, have been observing birds later. Of course, this is the path on in. So I'll check back in when I get to the Tawdra gates. And what do we have up here? The Tawdra gates. Now, if you watched some of my other videos, you may have heard me reference these gates. In fact, you can probably see the comm towers in the background. That's a good sight. So once we get to the other side, kind of off in that direction, I'm going to stop again, and I'm going to show you a view that if you saw my other night search and rescue video, you should recognize. Okay, in my night search and rescue video, I was standing approximately right here shining a light on the Tadra gates. Of course, we came back from this direction, and then we went on here to work our way back into gate 30. Remember, this is when we were looking for Alan. Well, we're still looking for Katie. You may also recognize from the daytime video this groomed path over here. It's where I took my little detour and had to backtrack. So I've been blowing my whistle. I'm probably going to do another quick sweep of this area, get back on the whistle, her name. I may even go in that direction for a small amount of time, do a thermal search, kind of trying to gamble here that she was trying to make her way back to Valley View, and we're probably going to have other searchers working off in this direction. So I probably won't go too far in that direction until I come back and pick up our path here and work my way back in. But again, contrast this view to what it was like when we came through here in the daytime. Okay, I had to show you this one more time. At night before, we were coming through here from the other end this way. This is that little pond area. We also went through here during the daytime. I actually just got contacted by Incident Command. Katie has been found. She worked her way out to the Piney Woods campgrounds, took some photos, got lost on the way back, ended up on the Six Flags Trail. She'd stayed way later than she thought. Had to use her cell phone for light, eventually fell, hurt herself, but one of the horseback searchers found her, so I'm just going to work my way back into Valley View and follow the exact same route that we did during the daytime video. So I'll check back when I get to Valley View. Notice that the comm towers are right there. Moon behind me and to the right, just like we said it would be. So just on the basis of those two markers, we know we're going in the right direction. So can you see the eyes over there? I got at least 2 pairs staring back at me, 3 pair. So what are they, some sort of hideous monster? No, those are probably cows. Yeah. You saw in the last video I had some cattle following me. Looks like we found them. So, oh boy, it's another roundup, this time at night. Okay, so once again, here we are. There are the comm towers, very close to the right orientation. Moon is behind me and to the right. And you can see just ahead, there's the reflection of the gate. Don't know if you can see the red on the GoPro. That should be the reflection off my truck. So that's Valley View. Of course, it's very nice that, in this scenario, someone else found Katie. That's great. Even though I work as a solo operator, it's great to be part of a larger team. And that allows us to search different areas more quickly. Of course, if I had found Katie, then it's likely that she would have been injured. I would have had to tend to injury. She's probably hypothermic, get her warmed up, hydrated up, all of that. Maybe build a fire, depending on where her position is and what the surrounding terrain is like. Found the nearest high ground, put up a strobe. Strobe would have been helpful to alert any inbound rescuers to know that they're on the right track to our position. But in terms of navigation, really all I did, just like I used the comm towers in the sun during the day, I used the comm towers in the moon at night. No map, no compass, no GPS. And so you can contrast again how all this compares to the exact same route during the day. But now, if we can see the truck, coffee time is next, so I'm going to sign off and thank you.